midnight screams.
Day 1, I woke up sluggish and heavy. Maybe it's the weather this early winter, darkness always gets to me. The window was fogged from the inside, and I could barely make out the street from my bedroom. A quick shower, clothes on, and I went to the kitchen for breakfast. Buttered toast and a bit of cheese. Lately, I've developed a taste for the fancy kinds. Makes me feel almost like a gourmet. Finished with a coffee, brushed my teeth, and within half an hour I was ready for work. I wanted to get to the school early today. There were a few papers I'd left behind that needed grading before winter break. I wanted to return the biology tests that hadn't gone so well, so the students could redo them after the holidays. Shoes on, brown wool coat, buttoned, I was ready to go. One last glance around the apartment. Just habit then, I opened the door. And that's when I got my first surprise. The doorway was sealed. A thick, transparent sheet of plastic covered the exit. The door opened inward, but the frame had been hermetically sealed. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe construction work in the building. Maybe a mix-up. I reached out carefully to touch it. The plastic was cool and taut, lined with yellow and red quarantine tape along the edges, professionally attached to the frame. For a moment, I just stood there, confused. Someone or something had sealed me in, but why? I leaned against the plastic, trying to see into the hallway. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, I thought. But when I pressed harder, a black figure appeared just beyond the doorframe. The moment he saw me, he shouted, "Step away from the plastic!" A sharp, angry male voice. Then came a distinct metallic sound, the unmistakable click of a weapon being readied. I stumbled back in panic and ran to the living room. Hiding behind the couch, I crouched on the floor, trembling. I waited for shouting, for footsteps, for anything, but nothing came. The plastic barrier remained untouched. The man outside didn't enter. He simply stood there, motionless. After a while, I crawled out from behind the couch. I turned toward the windows. At first, I thought they were fogged too, but they weren't. They'd been sealed shut as well, covered completely in plastic. The light filtering through them was dull and yellowish, and my apartment glowed faintly in that sick, sterile hue, as if the whole place had become one giant quarantine chamber. Day 5. I've been a prisoner in my own apartment for 5 days now. That's plenty of time to inspect everything, to analyze, to observe, to attempt some kind of logical assessment of what's happening to me. The most plausible hypothesis is that I've become the subject of an experiment. Whether I volunteered for it or was taken without consent, I can't say, but every indicator points in that direction. Communication has completely ceased. My phone is inoperable. The screen flickers. The buttons don't respond. It behaves as if under constant electromagnetic interference, as though some kind of frequency jammer is active in the area. The television produces only static, no signal, no sound beyond the white noise. Water and electricity, however, still function. That detail is significant. It means someone is deliberately maintaining the utilities. They don't want me dead. They just want me here. The strangest part is the food. Every morning, fresh groceries appear in my refrigerator. I never hear the door open, never see movement, but the shelves are always stocked. I don't know how it gets there. Either there's a concealed access point to this apartment, or the delivery method is something entirely different, perhaps an automated supply protocol within the parameters of a controlled study. The first few days, I was nervous, waiting for something to happen, waiting for an explanation, but nothing did. I kept the front door open for a while, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything in the hallway. I saw only the guard, always the same black uniform, the same posture, motionless. They rotate every 6 hours. No words, no gestures. The exchange is perfectly synchronized, military in precision. Without any form of entertainment, I've turned to reading. Old, half-finished books, left on the shelves for years. There's a strange peace in it. Inside these walls, my focus sharpens, my thoughts align. In a way, the confinement itself feels orderly, almost pleasant. Perhaps this is how the mind behaves when it begins to adapt to captivity. Day 8. I no longer know what time it is. After 8 days of confinement, the days have started to blur together. My biological rhythm, something I once took for granted, has lost its external cues. I can't tell when it's morning or night anymore. I keep count. Every time darkness falls, I draw a line on the wall. During the day, I try to judge the passing of time by the yellowish light filtering through the plastic sheets that cover the windows, but I can't see the street at all. No movement, no sound. The outside world has gone completely silent. The books no longer entertain me. The words are still there, neatly arranged, but their meaning feels hollow. My days have turned into a monotonous cycle. I hate sitting on the couch, waiting for something, anything to happen. I've tried talking to the guard outside. I called out, asked questions, even begged him to answer me, but he didn't. Not a word, not a single gesture. So I sit for hours in the living room, watching the faint yellow light seep through the plastic and wash over the walls. The color is sickly, pale, as if someone had filtered the life out of sunlight itself. Since yesterday, I've had a splitting headache. I don't know what's causing it. Maybe it's the lack of fresh air, or a psychosomatic response to prolonged confinement. The pain fluctuates, a rhythmic pressure behind my temples, sometimes followed by dizziness. Water and power still work. Each morning the fridge is restocked, but even food has lost its appeal. The flavors are muted. Everything tastes the same. Day 10. For the past 2 days, I've felt terrible. The headache hasn't gone away. In fact, it grows worse by the hour. It feels as though something inside my skull is expanding, as if my brain were under pressure, trying to burst free from the confines of the bone. If that weren't enough, new symptoms have appeared. Severe nausea, vomiting, complete loss of appetite. I can't keep food or fluids down. More than once, I've lost control of my bodily functions. I try to take a shower, but even simple movements exhaust me. I'm probably running a fever. My entire body trembles. My muscles spasm involuntarily. My skin feels cold to the touch, yet inside, I burn with heat. When I looked in the mirror, my pupils were dilated, my eyes bloodshot, my face pale. Based on these observations, I suspect an acute infection, or perhaps a toxic reaction, possibly to something in the food supply. Yesterday, I crawled to the front door and begged the black-clad guard outside to help me. He didn't respond, not a word. In desperation, I tried to provoke him. I even vomited on the floor near the door, hoping that would get a reaction. I assumed they wouldn't allow their experimental subject to die. But nothing happened. Only silence. That's where I lost consciousness, right there, by the door. When I woke up, I was in my bed. The apartment was spotless. The air was fresh. The bedding changed. The floor scrubbed clean. No trace of anything that had happened remained. Every surface was dust-free, disinfected. I have no idea how I got back into bed, but someone or something must have entered while I was unconscious. Curiously, I feel better now. The headache has dulled. The fever subsided. It's strangely comforting, this state of recovery. My body seems to be regenerating, though I don't understand how or by what mechanism. Perhaps I'm being monitored, and they intervene only when my system reaches a critical threshold. Day 14. It's been 4 days since I last received any food. The refrigerator is completely empty, and each morning it remains that way. What's truly strange is that I don't feel hunger at all. No stomach growling, no dizziness, none of the usual symptoms of hypoglycemia. In fact, at times, I feel unusually light, as if my body has shifted to some alternative energy source. Objectively, this contradicts every known physiological principle. The human body, in such deprivation, enters a catabolic state, first depleting hepatic glycogen stores, then consuming muscle tissue and fat reserves. The process is inevitably accompanied by fatigue, muscle pain, and cognitive dullness. But I experience none of that. Only visible physical change while my mind remains clear. I've lost significant weight. The bones beneath my skin are sharply defined, the muscles nearly gone, yet I feel no pain. It's as if my nociceptors have shut down, or a central inhibitory mechanism in the nervous system has become permanent. It appears that the neurotransmission pathway for hunger between the brainstem and the hypothalamus has been disrupted, or possibly reorganized into an entirely new feedback pattern. My metabolism no longer behaves like that of a human being. This morning I looked into the mirror again. My skin is pale, grayish in tone. The capillaries beneath my eyes have vanished. My face is hollow. I don't know whether this is due to hypoxia, hemoglobin degradation, or some unknown metabolic transformation, but I'm certain now. The biological system I once understood no longer functions within me. My body has begun to obey different rules, and despite my fear, I need to understand what those rules are. Day 15. My body has changed. I don't know what triggered it, but the transformation is undeniable. Over the past few days, I've conducted several observations on myself. It's been more than 6 days since I last ate or drank anything. By all physiological standards, my body should have already collapsed, renal failure, dehydration, and metabolic disruption forming a fatal triad. Yet I'm still here, fully conscious, sitting in the living room, staring at the covered windows. I can no longer tolerate light. Even the smallest ray of sunlight causes a sharp, burning pain in my eyes, as if my retinas had become hypersensitive to the visible spectrum. A physiological explanation might be melanin depletion or retinal degeneration, but it's equally possible that my nervous system has begun responding to photic stimuli in an entirely new way. The pain is unbearable, so I've covered every window with blankets. The apartment now exists in a state of perpetual dusk, but at least the burning has stopped. My second observation: this isn't my apartment. Every detail looks the same, a near-perfect copy, but the discrepancies are subtle and consistent. The walls have no cracks, though they've been there for years. The bedroom door, which used to stick and never quite close, now fits perfectly in the frame, as if newly installed. Even the floorboards sound different beneath my feet. The entire space feels reconstructed, as if someone replicated the environment of my life, but not quite accurately. I've left the front door wide open. I no longer care that the guards are standing outside. The fear I once felt is gone. I'm not sure if this is apathy, neurological desensitization, or simply the shutting down of the human instinct for self-preservation. My body is something else now. And the space around me, it feels like a controlled environment, a laboratory replica of reality, where I am being studied while I try to determine how much of me remains human. Day 17. My body continues to change. I don't know what precisely initiated the process, but the biological pattern is unmistakable. The earlier symptoms, light aversion, reduced body temperature, loss of hunger and thirst, have now been joined by new striking signs. This morning, all my teeth fell out. There was no pain, no bleeding. They simply loosened and slipped soundlessly from their sockets, as if the periodontal ligament cells had received a signal for self-dissolution. When I ran my tongue across the gums, the surface felt smooth and cold. A few hours later, new teeth began to emerge. They are far sharper and longer than a human dentition should be. The incisors taper to points, the canines have grown disproportionately, and the molars are ridged predatory, almost serrated. Anatomically, such regenerative speed would be impossible. The new tissue is likely not calcium phosphate based like normal enamel, but composed of some harder, unknown biopolymer, perhaps the result of an alternative mineralization process. My hair has also begun to shed en masse, not in patches, but uniformly, as if the follicles had simultaneously received an apoptotic signal. My scalp is now smooth, pale, and cold to the touch like the surface of a wax figure. The photosensitivity has become extreme. Even the faintest beam of sunlight pierces my vision with searing pain. My skin itches violently, as though undergoing a photon-induced allergic reaction. My pupils remain fully dilated, and my retinas seem to have adapted entirely to darkness. I can distinguish even the smallest light sources with unnerving clarity. I've blacked out every window. Only a faint glow filters through the open doorway, and even that is intolerable. Darkness is no longer an enemy. In fact, it feels as though my eyes function best within it. I still attempt to interpret all this within scientific parameters, but the biology I once knew offers no explanation. Evolution does not leap this far unless someone gives it a push. Day 19, I can't sleep. It's not that I'm having sleepless nights. The need for sleep itself is gone. My eyes don't tire. My body doesn't crave rest. My mind remains constantly active. Yet, I feel none of the exhaustion that prolonged wakefulness used to bring. Physiologically, this is impossible. In humans, sleep deprivation leads to neurological disintegration within days, hallucinations, confusion, cardiac arrhythmia. I show none of these symptoms. It's as if the mechanisms of neuroregeneration are functioning without rest, or as if my brain has deactivated the circuits responsible for dreams and fatigue entirely. Sometimes I look out through the covered windows to tell whether it's day or night. The faint yellow glow is my only reference point, but my sense of time is gone. Day and night have become indistinguishable, as though the world has forgotten how to turn. But today, something happened. I had just begun to pull back the blanket covering the window when I heard footsteps in the hallway, followed by the rustling of the plastic sheet. 2 armed soldiers in black uniforms stepped into the living room. "Get on the ground!" one shouted. When I didn't react quickly enough, the other screamed, "Get on the fucking ground!" One of them shined a flashlight directly at me. The light was blinding. It felt as if my eyes were melting, a burning sting spreading across my skin. I dropped to the floor and lay motionless. One soldier stood over me while the other began searching the apartment. Then a third figure entered. He wore a yellow hazmat suit, his face completely obscured by the mask. He set down a metal case beside me, sterile medical instruments inside. He opened it, removed a vial and a syringe. "What did you do to me?" I asked. He didn't answer. "Why are you doing this?" I pressed. "Stay calm," he said finally. "We're just taking blood." "Why am I locked in here? What is this?" I tried to ask, my voice trembling. "We didn't do anything," he replied coldly as the needle pierced my arm. "You did this to yourself." His words hurt more than the injection. What did he mean by that? I hadn't done anything. I taught biology. I graded papers. I lived my life. I watched as my blood filled the vial. It flowed thicker than it should have. Its color unnaturally dark, almost black. The doctor gave the vial a slight shake, studying its viscosity, then nodded. Without another word, all 3 of them left. The door sealed again. The plastic rustled once more, and I was alone, in the silence and the dark. Day 22. The past few days have brought more changes. My body has undergone another series of transformations, rapid, uncontrolled processes that no known biological model could describe. A few hours after the examination, unbearable pain overtook me. It felt as though my bones were shifting apart, as if my body were trying to rearrange itself from within. A sharp, stabbing pressure built beneath my ribs, and a tearing, pulling force traveled along my spine. The pain came in cycles, fading, then returning in another region. My back was the worst. I was certain my ribs were about to burst through my chest. My eyes began to ache as well. Pressure seemed to build behind them, a pulse deep inside my skull. It felt as if only a thin membrane kept them from rupturing. When the pain finally flooded my entire head, I lost consciousness. When I awoke, everything was different. My vision had become unnaturally sharp. I could see the heartbeat of the guards beyond the door, rhythmic, red pulsations, as though the wall were transparent. I didn't just see them. I felt them, the rhythm of their breathing, the faint vibration of their motionless bodies. The apartment had changed, too. Every piece of furniture was in its place, yet nothing felt familiar. The door was no longer the same. It had been replaced with thick metal, and there was no handle. It seemed impenetrable, as if it had been built specifically for me. And there is something else, an odor. This morning, a strange, sweet, almost hypnotic scent filled the air. It was the kind of smell that would make a human stomach turn, and yet I was drawn to it irresistibly. The source was the refrigerator. When I opened it, horror took hold of me. It was full of decaying flesh animal remains, bones, viscera. Maggots crawled among the meat, and the air vibrated with the sound of flies, and still the smell was inviting. Then the hunger came. Not the ordinary human kind, but something primal and overwhelming. It was as if the starvation of the past days had condensed into a single violent impulse. I fell to my knees before the refrigerator and began to eat. I don't know how long it lasted. I remember only the taste: salt, iron, the bittersweet tang of rot. The flesh stank, yet with every bite I felt something deep, instinctual, something that could only be called satisfaction. I couldn't stop. Day 24, I am completely undone. After last night's disgusting meal, I slipped into something like a trance. It felt chemical, like intoxication. My body relaxed, my mind cleared, and I fell into a deep, steady state that resembled sleep, though I doubt it was that. When I awoke, everything looked the same as before, yet somehow nothing was. The guards outside had changed again. I could sense the difference. Their sweat smelled different, and one of them had a faint heart murmur I could hear through the wall. I didn't need to see them, I simply knew they were there. But it wasn't that which broke me. It was the reflection. Out of boredom, I wandered the apartment and found myself in the bathroom. When I looked up at the mirror, the thing that looked back at me was no longer human. My body is anatomically unrecognizable. The skin is gray, devoid of circulation's warmth. The underlying tissue lacks the red tint of oxygenated blood. My eyes glow faintly red. Perhaps a new pigment layer has formed within the retina. My teeth jut forward, sharp and irregular. The canines grotesquely enlarged. Dark, dried blood crusts the corners of my mouth. My posture is hunched, the spine arched, the neck thrust forward like a predator poised to strike. My arms seem longer than before. The nails have been replaced by black, keratinous claws. For a moment, I turned away from the mirror. Something human still stirred within me, some primitive echo of shame or routine. I stripped down and stepped into the shower. I don't know why, perhaps instinct, or the last reflex of what used to be my human self. The water was cold, but my skin didn't react. No goosebumps, no shivering, only the steady sound of water running down a misshapen body. Of all my clothes, only the pants fit now. The shirt would not go over my shoulders, and the shoes no longer made sense. My feet have lengthened, the nails curved and claw-like. I looked back at my reflection, and this time, I didn't feel disgust. I felt anger. Not human anger, but something raw, ancient, an instinct without a target, only direction. Deep within me, below thought and language, something old has awakened. It isn't emotion. It isn't reason. It's a simple, undeniable fact. I exist, and something unimaginably ancient within me is hungry. Day X. I no longer know how many days I've been locked in here. The concept of time has lost all meaning. My biological clock, the system that once regulated my sleep-wake rhythm, has completely collapsed. I don't know if it's day or night. In fact, I'm not even sure where I am anymore. I've begun to suspect that the apartment I live in isn't really mine. It's too perfect a copy. Everything is where it should be, yet the details betray the illusion. This is only a reproduction. There are no cracks on the walls. The paint is fresh. The scratches and stains are gone, as if reality itself were a laboratory model, rebuilt around me over and over again. What worries me most, however, is my consciousness. I'm not always awake. Sometimes everything blurs, as if I'm slipping into a dream, but these aren't dreams. When I return, the room is different, and my body feels as though it has fought something unseen. The last time I regained full awareness, the apartment was in ruins, but not in the way that someone might overturn furniture in rage. The walls had collapsed. The plaster had fallen away. The bricks were cracked, and beneath them, I saw a layer of thick, reinforced metal, as though the apartment were, in truth, a containment cell, an artificial shell built to hold me. There were claw marks on the metal, long, deep gouges that matched the shape of my hands perfectly. I don't need to speculate. I did it, but I don't remember doing it. I don't remember anything. My consciousness skips like a broken machine, and every time I come back, there's a little less of me. My thoughts are disjointed. Sentences fragment. Sometimes when I write down a word, I don't recognize it right away. It's as if I'm learning a new language, one my body already speaks, but my mind can no longer understand. I don't know how much time I have left before I come apart completely, but I need to finish this. I need to write it all down before the other one takes over. Final page. I'm somewhere else now. A massive, sealed metal chamber. I can't say I'm surprised after what happened. This feels inevitable. At some point, the refrigerator filled again, with dead, rotting meat, and I ate. My body demanded it. The smell intoxicated me. I couldn't resist. Then I heard the noise. The metal door opened, and I sensed 7 distinct heartbeats, all beating in rhythm, all moving closer. The soldiers' black uniforms, helmets, blinding lights, their beams flooded the apartment. My eyes burned instantly. My skin sizzled under the rays, so I stayed hidden in the kitchen's darkness. I waited for them there, in the shadows. An 8th figure entered, the man in the yellow hazmat suit. He carried the same metal case as before. Target located, one of the soldiers said, holding a small beeping device. In the kitchen. The others nodded. Then their lights found me. Blinding. The pain flared. My body trembled, as if tearing itself apart. And then, it happened. Something broke free inside me. The other one, the thing that shares this body, took control. The feeling wasn't human. It was instinct, cornered, furious, primal. I heard myself growling, but I no longer knew if the sound came from me. My mind dimmed, but my movements were fast, precise. In a single motion, I reached the nearest soldier and snapped his neck. The beams burned, bullets struck my flesh, but my body didn't respond. I felt the impacts, but not pain, only rage. One by one, the soldiers fell. The room reeked of blood and metal. The doctor stumbled backward, then turned and ran. I followed on all fours, like an animal. That's when he entered. Someone new, massive, unfamiliar. He held a strange device that whirred as it powered up. Then came a flash. Just one. The next moment, I was across the room. Some kind of weapon. No doubt, the hole in my chest was the size of a fist. My black, viscous blood spread down my torso. I watched it flow and felt, for the first time, a kind of peace. Maybe this was the end. Maybe I was finally free. But I didn't die. I woke up here. The wound is still there, but it's closing. The rate of cellular regeneration is exponentially higher than human baseline. The death process has stopped. Now I live in this sterile, metallic prison. They left me a bed and my journal Nothing else. I don't know why this happened. Why me? I was just a biology teacher, a man who believed in cell division, inheritance, and the laws of life. But the life I once knew no longer applies to me. I will live here, forever, in the dark, and watch as everything we thought was human begins to change.